live. Let me check and make sure. Listen, y'all know I am a one-woman show. Now, in doing this, I left my phone over there. Let's make sure we live, ladies and gentlemen, before we continue. You know what? I wish there was an easier way that I could transition to this. I wish there was an easier way that I can just go ahead and say hello. Welcome to another episode of Hood Parenting Live. You are watching Hood Parenting on YouTube, and I'm your host, Yashika. Here on Hood Parenting Live, this is where I talk to my audience and give them things that we wish we were taught when we were kids. Or better yet, I give them advice or life lessons that is just raw, unfiltered, right? Not scripted, meaning that I don't have time to edit. These are me addressing situations, addressing challenges, addressing obstacles that either I face myself or people that I know face. So that's what I would like to say here when I come on here, okay? But unfortunately, I have to always check and make sure that I'm live, okay? Because I am a one-woman show, and as a one-woman show, I have to make sure that I am really being recorded. Because let me tell y'all something. I made a whole video the other day, and but unfortunately, there we go. I made a whole video the other day, and when I made the video, I went to listen to it, and come to find out, the volume wasn't on, right? I don't even know how it happened, but I couldn't hear myself on the audio. Not sure what happened, not sure what took place or anything like that, but all I know is that I was like, you know what? That's what happens when you're recording and you start getting comfortable and not testing, not checking to make sure that what you're recording is actually being recorded. Okay. So enough of that. Welcome to another Sunday edition of Hood Parenting Live. Today we are talking about parenting on empty, talking to your kids about what we were never taught. When I think about this particular topic, I think about things that I learned when I joined the military. And if this is not if this is not your first time here, then more than likely you've heard me tell stories other times about things that I discovered in the military or things that I learned when I first went in, because being 18 when I joined and my mother being a 16-year-old girl when she gave birth to me, it's like, who was going to teach me a lot of things? And so, yeah, there was a lot of things that my mom taught us, like for sure. But when it comes to digging deep down in there to say, okay, let me make sure that my children have this, or let me make sure that they know this or know that. There wasn't a time that I can recall where lessons were taken deep. Okay. So for example, one of the things that I learned in the military, and I know this is probably TMI, but I did, because what it provided me, before I give you what I learned, I'm going to give you the reference. When I came in, again, like I said, I was 18. This was 1991. So we weren't in the stage of, we didn't have Google or the internet or anything like that yet. So a lot of what you learn, you either learned it from watching others or someone told it to you, right? Or through your own trial and error. That's how you typically learn things. Well, my mother taught me how to take care of my personal hygiene, like for sure, right? We bathed, I mean, like in the tub and ring around the tub, the whole 9 yards. Okay, shower, brushing your teeth, like personal hygiene. She taught us that. But I recall one lesson that I learned while I was in AIT or basic training that I didn't think about. Okay, and because no one had ever told me, and that was women wearing panty liners just every day, an everyday panty liner. And so when I joined the military, of course, by us being, active and we're rolling through things and we're doing things, and as a woman, you need that. And so I remember specifically talking to some girls, and nobody was saying anything about anything, but one of them said, well, I wear a panty liner every day. So, and they kind of like, she kept talking. And so it dawned on me, like, am I supposed to be wearing a panty liner every day? So I was like, you know what? Let me get some and see what happens. And so I literally made sure that when we had a pass to go, or I may have already had some or whatever. And so I went ahead and was wear them every day to see if it would make a difference while we were out here trying to save the world, okay, as soldiers, all right? But it was just one of those things where I learned from other people. My mother didn't teach me that. So when she taught me about personal hygiene, right? She taught me what she knew. There wasn't no, well, also do this. Well, also layer this with that, layer that with that. And so that's just one of those examples where I think about what we teach our kids, but yet we weren't necessarily taught, but yet we may have learned it along the way. And so that's just one of them, right? But when we think about things that we teach our kids, we also teach them basics on how to respond to things, how to react to things, and when things are not what you want them to be, or things are going the way they are, sometimes we tend to remain silent. And so we teach our kids that as well. We teach them, well, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to leave that over there. We're going to leave that where no one's speaking about it, because see, if you don't talk about it, then it's like it never happened. Or if you don't talk about it, then it's like it doesn't exist, or then it's not an issue because we've ignored the problem. Okay? So a lot of us, we teach silence to our children, as well as we taught them that we don't want to show them too much emotions, because when you talk, right, then you get emotional. You start letting what you're feeling come out. But if you never talk about it, then you suppress those things. We don't want to teach our kids those things anymore. We want them to be able to problem solve. We want them to be able to talk through their emotions. We want them to be able to talk through their feelings, use their words, make sure that they use their words and that they're very clear. And then on top of that, we want them to understand that if someone is saying stuff to us, they need to be able to answer the questions that they need to ask, right? Give that additional, well, what about this? What about that, right? And a lot of times we don't teach them that because they go off what we see, what they see. So if we're not digging deep into the layers of things and we're just touching the surface of things, right? Then more than likely, that's how our children are going to respond to things in life, as far as whatever. They're going to respond to confrontation. They're going to respond to whatever, because they don't know how to handle their emotions, because nobody else has ever taught them. So when we talk about things that when it comes to parenting and parenting on empty, we need to talk about the things that we weren't taught as well. And one of those is talking about not being silent, right? Acknowledging the silence, acknowledging when things aren't the way they should have been, or acknowledging, well, you know what? I wanted to talk about this. I remember when it was time for me to have that bird and bee conversation with my parents, right? Well, with my mom. I was raised by my mom. And it was one of those things where I got to take some wine on this, y'all. Hold on. I got to drink some wine on this one, okay? Well, when it came time for us to have that conversation, I thought that my mother was going to tell me more, because I remember I wanted her to get me on the pill. Okay, true story. I wanted her to get me on the pill. And I was more or less telling her that, hey, I don't know if I'm going to do this, but what I do know, because I learned this in education class, okay, because, I was a scholar in school. I was one of them real smart kids, right? So, so I was like, Mom, so they told me that if I go and get these things right here, that I possibly wouldn't get pregnant. Okay, so I'm gonna need to go get some of those. So I need you to take me there. My mother was like, girl, first of all, I'm not. And she was like, and then on top of that, that's like me giving you approval to go out and do this. And I'm not. And I was like, oh. And in my mind, that ain't the same thing. Like, I'm doing this just in case, I decide to do something, okay? Because I'm of age now and I'm thinking about it. So that was our sex conversation, okay? However, what she ended up telling me was, I'm not taking you. You better not do it. And if you bring any babies up in here, you're getting up out of here. That was all we talked about. That was all she said. And those were the rules. Those clear and simple. She said, you bring any babies up in here, you're getting out. And that was what I thought. And so in my mind, that was the only sex talk we had, because it was. She didn't say anything about what can happen. She didn't say, you know what, don't do this. Listen, she didn't say none of that. All she said back in the day, when I went like back, way back, was don't get pregnant. Because if you get pregnant, this is going to be your life right here, or you're going to mess around here and be like this. That's all she told me. She ain't tell me nothing else. She ain't tell me nothing else. So when it came to that, it was like, well, if we don't talk about it, it don't exist. And I didn't understand that. And so I know that for me, when I started having children, even when I had my, when I raised my bonus girls, my bonus daughters, I made sure that I explained to them, and I'm not saying I did it perfect. I'm just telling you what helped me and what I believe helped them, right? I explained to my daughters specifically what happens when we actually do these things. It's not so much about you can get pregnant or you can catch a disease, because yes, those things are true. We always talk about those things to our kids. You can get pregnant, or better yet, you can get someone pregnant, or you can catch something that you can't get rid of. Okay? Those are the things that we typically talk about. But what about that another layer, that additional layer of, you know what else this does to your body, or what this does to you mentally when you start doing these things right here? So when I started talking to them from that perspective, it was like, oh, okay. Because I'm like, listen, you go out here and you do these things, especially as a young girl or as a young woman. Guys is going to tell you, listen, guys don't come for me, but y'all know statistically speaking, it is what it is. Guys are going to tell us whatever they need to tell us in order to get to wherever they're trying to get to, in order to do whatever they're trying to do. So us as women or young girls, we have to be the ones that understand that, listen, me doing this with him, not only do I risk the possibilities of me getting pregnant or me catching a disease, but I also give up a part of me, because this is energy exchange. Not only that, but at the end of the day, him or us engaging in this, right? It takes away from it'll make me feel some kind of way. Because see, more than likely, especially when they're young, and this is how I explain to my daughters, when you're young and in school like this, these guys don't care. Their goal right now at this stage in their lives is to conquer as much as they can. There's no love involved. So if you go out here and do this way, what may also happen, it's just not you may get pregnant or you could catch a disease. This is also what could happen. You could lose yourself. You could feel some kind of way, because women, especially us as women, we attach sex to our worth. We attach our bodies to our worth. We do. And that's another subject that I'm not allowed to go down that rabbit hole on. But we attach it to our worth. And so a lot of times when people are, for lack of a better word, playing in our faces, or when men are playing in our faces, we feel it'll make us feel a certain kind of way. So this is the conversation that I have with my daughters. It wasn't so much of don't do this because you can get pregnant. I wanted to go deeper in the layers. But what I also recognize is that me not talking about it wasn't going to help them. Me not talking about it wasn't going to help them. So when it came to different things in our family, I made sure to talk about those things with the kids, because even if I didn't know the answers, I told them, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like, I don't know. If it's something that I don't know, I don't know. Like, why do people do? I don't know. People just, there's things that I had to be honest with. But one thing that I do know is that when it came to talking to my kids about things, especially things that I wasn't taught, I wanted them to acknowledge, I wanted to acknowledge to them that, listen, I understand this. I was here, or better yet, I went through this, or this happened as a kid, or I've seen somebody, or this happened with my whatever. I wanted them to be able to have as much information as they could about whatever, so they can problem solve as much as they could, right? Because if I give them 3 different ways in which to approach a situation, listen, there's probably 100 ways in which to approach a situation or solve a problem, but we don't have time to actually trouble or try all 100 ways. We got to hurry up and get some things done. So you got about 3 different options here. You got about 3 different routes you can take. That's it. That's all. Okay. One of them you could probably eliminate. Now you're down to 2. And that's it. That's all. So that's what I aim to do when I talk to my kids about different things. It wasn't so that I needed to tell them what happened to me. I needed them to have as much information as possible. These are the things that I know can be true. That's it. So why do kids still need this? Why do they need us to talk to them? Let me tell you something. When we don't talk to our children, it leaves them vulnerable to everybody else talking to them. And that includes social media, especially social media. Okay? Especially social media. My daughter told me, my 11-year-old, we had a discussion about girls getting pregnant, during certain times of the month. And she told me at her age last year that, well, I'm not cycling, so I can't get pregnant. And I said, girl, who told you that? I said, cause see, there's a way you do it, but I know you don't have all the information. And so now you're listening to people that's giving you half information. So now think about if she was this 15, 16, 17-year-old girl out here who didn't have all the information. And so in her mind, someone told her that she could not if this was occurring. So she's go out here and attempt this thinking that what they told her was true. And then now she got a oops accident. So what I'm saying to you is that if we don't talk to our kids and if we're not verbal with them and if we're not honest with them, if we're not straightforward with them and filling in those voids and those questions that they have, they're going to get the answers from other places. And unfortunately, the way life is that we don't know what we don't know. So if they've already been told something about a problem that they foresee and someone has given them a solution, then guess what? They don't know that there's more to it than that because why? They don't know what they don't know. That's anybody, not just kids. People don't know what they don't know. So they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what questions to be specific about. Okay, well, tell me about if I got to be on my, standing a certain way or if I got to have my head tilted this way. Like, you got to give all the details. And if you don't know to ask those questions, then you won't. And unfortunately, when it comes to our kids, the internet will fill in the gaps. Those uninformed, we called them, when I was in the Army, we called them barracks lawyers. That's what we called them. We called them barracks lawyers or shithouse lawyers, right? That'll tell you all this stuff that they think they know and they don't know nothing. They ain't done no research. They ain't been through it themselves. They ain't did nothing. All they did was listen to a few people and they came up with this. And so now they're giving it to you and you taking it as gold. Okay, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them people. All right. If nothing else, Google it, search it, right? Make more than one Google search. All right. But what you don't do is avoid talking about the subject because they're going to find out. So you need to get as much information as you can, or shall I say, we as parents get as much information as we can so that we can properly arm our children with as much information as they can, even though these are things that we weren't taught. So how to start when we don't know how? This is how we start. We have to make sure that we keep it all age appropriate. Okay. Now, like I've told my daughter, and I was talking about this earlier. There are things that I tell my 11-year-old, and unfortunately, because not unfortunately, we are 40 years apart. Okay. And I tell her all the time, listen, there are things that I'm not going to understand. I don't know. I need you to tell me. Now, I understand it from an adult perspective. But for example, if she wants to, like, for example, this pajama day at school, I'm just using this as an example. They have this thing where they do pajama day at school. Okay. And so me being a Gen Xer, I don't understand it. It's just like, why pajamas? Why you can't have like a dress up day? Why you got to be in pajamas, right? Because people want to they want to just go out the house. You see a lot of college students roll out of bed, go to class because in their mind, their schedules are just so busy. They don't have time for nothing else. Okay. So what I'm saying to you is that I didn't agree with it. So like I told her, I need you to tell me so we can do pajama day, but we're going to be specific about what pajamas we wear. And we're going to make sure that we wear something that's presentable. So they're not pajamas by the time we get done. They're pretty much just a going outside outfit because I'm like, okay, you can put on a pajama pair of pants, right? Because they have the those characters on them, but we're going to put on a real shirt. We're not about to put on a pajama t-shirt. We're going to put on a real shirt. Okay. So I'm trying to meet you one way, meet you halfway. You got to meet me halfway. So this is how I try to talk to her, because I understand that by us being 4 decades apart, there's going to be some things that she's going to go through, or she needs to experience that I'm not going to see. And if, for example, the pajama day, if all her friends are always coming, because they do it like maybe once every 2 months or something like that. If all her friends are always doing it and she's not ever doing it, she's going to feel some kind of way about it. And so I have to say, okay, all right, I don't think it's appropriate to go outside in pajamas. However, I get it. I get it. And so I explained to her why I feel this way. I explained to her that, okay, if you go with pajamas to school, then you got to come straight home, because we ain't going nowhere else with these pajamas on. Okay. So that's the rules. Just that simple. So we keep it age appropriate. And then on top of that, when we do talk to them, we tell a story in a way where they can understand, right? And when we tell that story in a way that they can understand, we let them know that, hey, when I was growing up, we didn't have this, and I'm learning this too. I'm learning this also. I'm learning this as you're learning this. And sometimes kids will say, you know what? Because remember, kids are resilient. They looking at you like there's things that I talk to my sons about, especially my 30-year-old. He don't believe things about me that I tell him that happened when I was younger, or just in life, because in his mind, not my mother. That would never happen to my mother. In his mind, I am like this woman that will, like, listen, not my mother, not my mama. Like, there's things that he never believes about me, right? Because it's like, not my mother. Like, but I have to remind him I wasn't always this person. Although I had this, although I'm who I was, I still had to grow into some things. And so I'm telling him, this is the things that I learned, and this is how I learned it, and this is how this came to be. And so while I'm teaching him these things, right? I remember teaching him these things. So now when I talk to my daughter, I'm thinking about the things that I taught my son and how I taught it to him. And so now I kind of take a page out of that book, because my middle boy, my youngest boy, which is my middle child, for him, it was a little different, because he had a little bit of everybody. We had grandmama in the house, he had mother and father in the house. He had older sisters. He had an older brother. So for him, things was a little different. He had a lot of people that were doing things for him. And so now he's kind of like that, you know what, let me figure life out on my own, because he was used to people doing things for him. So for him, it was a little different. So I think about my oldest son, and then I think about my baby girl. That's where there's a big difference in the way that I raised my children, because number one, times were different, right? I was 22 when I had my oldest son, comparable when I got my daughter at 40. And when I adopted her, I'm 40. When I got her in custody, when I got her from custody, I was 40. And, so you figure I'm already like, my oldest son was already 18, 18 going on 19. So in my mind, I was done having children. So I noticed that with raising her, I do have to revert back to the way that I raised my oldest son, because he was the first. And by him being the oldest child, I have to take it from that perspective. Like, okay, she's in the house by herself now. There's no older siblings to tell her anything differently. There's nobody. So anything I show her, anything I'm doing, she's only watching me. She's only watching me. So this goes back to the way it was with my oldest son, although he had a father. With her, there's no one other person in the house but me. And so it's like everything that I teach her, I have to show it from a perspective of, not only do I tell it to her, but I also have to demonstrate it. And so another way that we teach our kids is by leading by example. We have to lead by example. We can't tell our kids, don't do this, and we're doing it. I'm going to give you all an example. We was in church. Today is Sunday. We was in church. And I'm playing a crossword puzzle with a military friend of mine from back in the day. And every time we play crosswords, it's called Words with Friends or something like that, he kicks my behind, okay? Because apparently he's good at it. I don't know. I don't even know how I started playing them. All I know is I went on there one day and he had put a word. Then I was like, you know what? I can get a word too. Let's play. And it started like that. But I say all that to say this. So we in church today, and I noticed that it was my turn. Okay, because I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, shoot, it's my turn. He been waiting all day for my turn. So I went on ahead and clicked the doggone button, and I went in there and I was like, what word can I come up with? And I moved the letters around. My daughter is sitting beside me in church. Okay, she's watching me move these tiles around for this Scrabble board, Words with Friends, to come up with this word. And I went on ahead and placed my word and did whatever. And I did that and I turned it off and I set it back down. About 5 minutes later, she picked up her doggone phone and started playing Tetris. She started playing Tetris. She sure did started playing Tetris. I didn't say nothing because typically she know not to use a phone in church. She know we ain't in the church playing on no doggone video games or no doggone phone games. That ain't what you come to church for. You can do that at home. However, comma, what could I tell her in that moment? Do as I say, not as I do. Right? That ain't right. That ain't fair. So what I said is, okay, this was on me. So next time I got to make sure that if I'm going to pay words for friends in school, I don't let her see it. Okay. That's what I got to make sure I'm going to do. I got to make sure I don't let her see it. Because I don't want her breaking out her phone. She can't do what I do. Because see, she don't even pay tithes. I pay her tithes. Okay. So she don't, no, I was listening. And then on top of that, I know how to listen and, she don't know how to, I ain't saying I'm listening fully. Okay. But I had one ear open and I'm playing playing Scrabble, and she don't know how to do both. You can believe that. She can't do both. So what I'm saying to you is that our kids, they watch us. So no matter what we're doing, we have to make sure that we lead by example. Gone are the days of do as I say, not as I do. All right. Because see, when our parents would tell us that, we understood it. These kids these days, they don't understand that. They don't understand that. They feel like, you know what, if you doing it, I'm doing it too. Because that's the way we're raising them. Right? We're raising them with not a lot of boundaries, with not a lot of borders, with not a lot of guidelines in terms of what's permissible and what's not permissible. People are just free to do whatever they want to do these days. Okay. So when you think about that, when it comes to raising our kids, if we're out here just doing whatever we want to do, then how can we tell them not to do it? If we're not living structured, if we're not doing things for ourselves, for health wise, to keep ourselves together, to keep everything the way it needs to be, we have to keep ourselves together so that they can learn it as well. Because why? The children watch us and we have to lead by example. So talking to your kids, right, it's never going to be perfect. We all know that. We all know that nothing about this thing called parenting is perfect. That's why this station is called Hood Parenting, because sometimes, right, we got to just do what we need to do in order for our family to be okay. And we implement, because when we start bringing in everybody else's rules about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how to do it, you're not even being yourself, because at that point, you don't even know what you're doing. But you got to do something. You got to parent. You got to do something. So we start with making sure that we're being the best person we can be as parents, so that when we do talk to our kids, or when we do share things with our kids, or when we are filling on those gaps of silence, we're actually filling those things in with something that matters, something that's going to pull them forward or push us, something that's going to push us, all of us forward as a family, right? Because that's what we're supposed to do, move every generation forward. We move our people forward, and it starts with you and your family. You are responsible for moving your family forward when it comes to everything, generation and everything. And so one of the things that we do, we start by talking to our children. We start by not ignoring the things that they want to talk about. We start by making sure that we spend those quality times together. Okay, I remember when I was married to my second husband, one of the things that I made sure we did all the time, no matter how busy our schedule was that I cooked Sunday dinner. And when I cooked Sunday dinner, we all sat down as a family and we ate Sunday dinner. Like we all ate at the same time Sunday dinner. You know what I mean? And so it was just one of those things where it was like that was something that I knew no matter what that I kept. It was a structure, a very important structure, because it demonstrated, because it wasn't no cell phones. We didn't, at that time, we still had flip phones. Okay. So, it wasn't none of these smartphones where you could sit up here and be talking it wasn't all that. You had simple text messages back then. You had to push the button 3-4 times for you could spell a word. It wasn't these long drawn out texts. It wasn't this talk to text. It wasn't all that. We had a flip phone. So things were a little bit more simpler back then. But at the same time, that allowed us to have intimate moments with our children, talk to them about things, The kids share things amongst themselves because we, as girls and boys, they tend to, the girls go off over here, the boys go off over there. They don't all really mingle together. So it gave us an opportunity as a family to just really sit down and I can look them in the eye and ask them questions that maybe I needed to know and I hadn't got a straight answer yet, or better yet, I needed clarity about something. So it was my opportunity or our opportunities as parents and them, I'm sure, to talk, to love on each other. Even if we didn't say much, it still was an opportunity for us to bond, for us to just be in each other's spaces. And I'm going to tell you, we missed that. All of us as a family, because we're all in our own little worlds now, but we missed it. And that's why for me, I try to make sure that I do Thanksgiving at my house. If I do Thanksgiving in my house and I know that all of my kids are going to come into town and they're going to come and eat dinner. And so for me, that's something that I know that I instilled in them. They can't get together every Sunday, but they can definitely get together for that holiday that matters the most, where all of us can sit down and have dinner together. Okay. And so that's just how something that I adopted, because that way it kind of shows them, it kind of teaches them and kind of protects them and let them know that they have a grounding space. When you start doing things that are ritual in your family, it lets them know that they have it's like a grounding space. It's like a foundation for them. Okay. It's like a foundation for them. And so now that my daughter, it's just like my daughter and I think about those days. So on Sunday, because before I came here to do this live, I made sure I cooked for her. I say, hey, what do you want to eat? She told me and I cooked it. And so for me, it's always one of those things where I know no matter what, I give them that foundation. And dinners on Sundays is one of those things. And so, like I said, as parents, we're not going to always get it right. We're not going to always get it right. We're not perfect. But it's those things that we do and those things that we attempt to do, those things that we say that our children will remember. Right? We're not going to be able to teach them every single thing they need to know about this life. But what I do know is that when we say things to them and we be honest with them and we're open with them, we give them what they need in a lot of areas. They know how to access their resources. They know how to access whatever they need to get what they want once we plant that foundation for them. And so this right here is what Hood Parenting Live is about, making sure that we're teaching our kids things that we weren't really taught, or if we were taught it, we were taught it later on. So Hood Parenting Live, when I go live here on Sundays, this is what this is about. Giving lessons, life lessons that I know that people are going to need. And I know that a lot of us weren't raised with certain things. We weren't taught certain things, but we have to do things differently, because if we want our kids to be okay or our children to be okay, we have to be able to, we have to do the uncomfortable things. Because when we are tasked with moving our families forward and breaking certain, some people call them generational curses. Some people call them, familiar curses or family curses or family whatever, right? If you're responsible for breaking those things, or you feel like you're one of the people that are supposed to do it, because everybody has a responsibility to play. Everybody's different in the family. But if you know for a fact that that's part of your role is this as well, it includes also all things. Because if your role is to be the richest person in your family, hypothetically, you are not going to just be rich. You're responsible for also changing other dynamics in your family, right? Even if it's just with your children, doing things differently than what was done before. Because we can't keep doing things the way that they were and hope for a different outcome. That's a definition of insanity. You know what I mean? And when I talk to people in my family, or even when I say whatever, I've always told people, listen, I don't want to be the only one that's living a certain life or doing whatever, because I'm going to keep going. I don't have a choice. But at the same time, I want to also make sure that everybody is with me when I do this. So I'm going to talk, I'm going to give them, I'm going to share whatever that I think, whatever lesson that I've learned that I know that has helped me to get where I am. I'm okay with sharing it, because why? My unsuccess, right? I want you to be better at it than me. I don't need you to make 50 million mistakes before you do something right. I've made those mistakes already. Don't repeat the mistakes I've made. Because what I tell my children is we all going to make our own set of mistakes. And so what I try to make them realize is that don't repeat the same ones that I did. I've already done those. I've already made those mistakes. Here's the answers to that test. When it comes to that test, now you go off and do something else, because see, now that you've elevated, because see, if I've done this thing down there, that means I've elevated us. You're going to come in contact with your own set of things. You're going to come in contact with your own obstacles and own things that you got to be responsible for solving. You don't need to be repeating stuff that I've already done. You got your own stuff to do. Right. And so I tell my kids, listen, don't do what I've done. I've done this and this is how it turned out. However, maybe if I had done it this way, or I don't tell them nothing, I just tell them this is what I did. It didn't work out for me. So you better not do it that way. Okay. I don't know the answers to the test. I don't know what you got to do, but I know that ain't the answer. That's what I tell them. That ain't the answer. Why? Because I did it and it didn't turn out. So that ain't the answer. You got 2 other times. Okay. Remember I said at least 3 ways to do something. So if I already did it one way, it didn't work out. Now you got a 50-50 split. You better pick the right one. You better pick the right one. Okay. And if you don't, oh well, get up and try it again. Those are the kind of conversations we got to have with our kids. You know, I've heard my daughter tell me, my oldest boy's daughter tell me one time, well, I wanted to feel like, make mistakes myself. Why? Why do you want to make the same mistakes that we made? Go out and find your own mistakes. If you know that, for example, teenage pregnancy hinders you from progressing in life, don't do it. You already know it. You don't think that you're going to be smarter than everybody else. Because everybody say, well, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to take care of me and him. You know how many rules, you know how many people say that they thought they had it all figured out and they still end up being a statistic? All right. These are the kind of conversations we got to have with our kids. We don't have time to sugarcoat anything anymore. It's just this cut and dry. Don't do it. Here's why. And if you get away with it this time, you may not get away with it next time. You may get away with it next time, but you may not get away with it the third time. Because see, people will keep doing things because they think they slick. They think they didn't solved it. Okay? They don't understand there's such thing as called just luck sometimes, or, timing or whatever. But you can't keep on pushing the envelope, especially when you know it's something you ain't supposed to be doing. So we have conversations with our kids. We need to talk about all these things, the things that we weren't taught and the things that we were taught, and dig a little bit deeper. Dig a little bit deeper. All right? So I am going to wrap up this episode of Hood Parenting Live. Listen, this is what I want to know from you all. What is something that you wish that your kids your parents had told you about when you were young or when you were coming up? I want you to drop it down below in the comments and let me know. What's something that you wish your parents had taught you that unfortunately or fortunately, you had to find out the hard way, and when you did find it out, it set you back a little bit. You think about if you had a little bit more knowledge, maybe you would have been, because I hear people say that all the time. But what's something that you wish that you had been taught when you were young? Okay. And so anyway, we are going to wrap up this segment or this episode of Hood Parenting Live. Listen, if this is your first time here, thank you for joining me. And while you are here, just leave me a comment. Go ahead and put a thumbs up. Let me know if you got something from this video. And if you feel inclined to do so, go ahead and share and subscribe and turn on your notifications so when I do post another video or go live, you will be one of the first ones to know. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.